at a point where you're not sure which way to go. You have a trauma and it disrupts everything. It showed me that I had strength within and that whatever came into my life, I could work through and kind of get to the
Mhm.
other side without having it totally collapse everything or break me. I chose to learn from the experience instead of using it as an excuse not to go on in life, and kind of was empowered by what I experienced afterwards.
There are experiences that change your life, and then there are experiences that change who you are. For Jill Sorensen, a life altering medical trauma became the beginning of a journey through loss, identity, and the search for meaning when everything familiar had been stripped away. But the most important discovery came after the shattering, which she found may offer a different way of understanding trauma, healing, and the path back to yourself. Welcome, Jill. I'm so happy for you to be here.
Thank you.
How are
Thank you very
you?
much. I'm
Yeah,
good. How are you?
absolutely. Good. I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. Jill, can you go a little deeper into what you've lived through and how that experience shaped the work or perspective that you bring into the world today?
Well, yes, I had, as you described, a major medical malpractice incident in my life that I really wasn't ready for. It just came out of nowhere and it was pretty catastrophic. And I had little children at home and a family at home and that needed me. And it kind of was something that stopped everything in the household. And
Mm,
it just gave me a new perspective. It was disabling at first and was something that I had to work through as I started to recover from the incident. And it was at that point that I realized a couple things, that this was probably not random. It was part of what I was supposed to experience in this life. And it showed me that even when things look like they're just, at a point where you're not sure which way to go, you have a trauma and it disrupts everything. It showed me that I had strength within and that whatever came into my life, I could work through and kind of get to the other side without having it totally to collapse everything or break me. I chose to learn from the experience instead of using it as an excuse not to go on in life, and just really just learned a lot of things and kind of was empowered by what I experienced afterwards. It was difficult going through it, but I learned a lot of
mhm,
things about myself and about the people around me and used it in that way. I just found that I had a choice. I could either use it to grow or I could use it not to grow. And the growth part was really something that was almost like a gift to me at that point. So, and that's
mhm.
what I write about in the book as
Yeah.
well.
Okay, and we can talk a little bit about the book later on, but I want to kind of go a little bit deeper into like you don't have to go in deeply into your actual experience. That's fine. But what did it feel like for you while you were in it? Like if you could just describe in however feeling words or something, just what did that feel like in your body, in your soul and whatever? Because a lot of us are feeling these feelings, but we don't know how to talk about them and we don't know how to connect with them. And those of us who have actually done it, it's helpful, for us to be able to share that. So can you share a little bit about what that felt like for you?
Yes. At the time, I really, when it happened, I don't think I really understood what was happening to me. I knew that, that this was big and it was something that I was going to need to work on and need to just not overcome, but, work through. And at that point, I just felt like I was floating, like through the experience. I didn't really understand what was happening until afterwards. And then I started to understand. But during that time, it was pretty much, about survival and getting through it. And then once it was all done, I felt like, okay, I'm going to need to just take a lot of time and contemplate what occurred and how I was going to react to it. So it was a feeling, vulnerable feeling, not really having experienced that before. I didn't have any other people around me that had experienced that kind of situation before. So I didn't really have anybody to go to say, hey, how did you do this? How did you find a way to just, make it something where it could be a force for positive in my life and for the people around me. So
Yeah.
that's this feeling.
Okay, okay, and that makes a lot of sense though, because here's the thing, and I felt, and I can empathize with that because most of us were never taught how to deal with any major anything coming up. It was always about stuffing our feelings down and hiding and isolating, and most of the time when you try and reach out to somebody, if you're grieving, any of that kind of stuff, most people, because we've learned how to do this, we smash all that stuff down. So it's very difficult to ask someone for support when they don't even know how to do it themselves, right? And for you, the part that stood out for me hugely was when you said floating. It felt like you were floating because it does. That's true. And it doesn't matter whether you're referring to a medical experience or if you're referring to an emotional experience or mental or anything. They all end up being very similar, it feels like, in the process because we're set in a certain way living our lives in society, and because we don't really focus on that ethereal piece of it the way we need to, floating feels uncomfortable even, but that's actually part of it. And I loved how you used that word because it was like that's what I felt. A lot of the stuff I went through, I felt that way, and mine wasn't medical. Mine was all emotional and mental, and spiritual type of things. But it's like the floating didn't, for me, for a long time, didn't go away. It was like it came in and out. Was that kind of similar to what you experienced as well, or was it just at the beginning that you felt that way?
I think it was a little bit of both. Just
Okay,
depended on like who was around me and what kind of support was going on. And but yeah, I mean
right.
it is one of those things where you're presented with this life challenge, and like you said, it doesn't have to be medical. It could be anything where you feel like you're challenged. And I just felt like like I said, I didn't really understand like how big it was when it occurred. And then afterwards, I started realizing that this was really a big event and there was a lot of meaning to this event that happened. And it started a spiritual journey. I had been a spiritual person, but it really took that experience to like kind of amplify and heighten my spiritual experience. And I found that the
Uh-huh.
only thing that was healing for me in my particular situation was to find how I could take my spirituality and use it as a healer for me, because at that point I really needed a lot of healing. And so
Yeah.
it was a journey. It was a heightened journey.
Yeah, and let's wanna tag on to that a little bit. If you don't mind sharing what your spiritual journey was like. Like, was it religious? Was it more spiritual? Was it more what was that like for you? Because the soul has a tendency to poke at us
Mhm.
when
Yeah.
it's time with something to get us to walk through it, but would love to know what that was like for you,
My own spiritual journey was kind of, I had a traditional Catholic upbringing, considered myself a devout Catholic when it happened. And so I wasn't completely, foreign to any spiritual things. I was always very into my spirituality, and that was always important to me. I was always, felt that was a big
Mhm.
part of my life. But it was traditional, and it was, traditionally going to church, and, just kind of the focus was on in church, and the focus was on looking outside myself to the religion in order to kind of connect with God, and looking to other people, other things to connect me. And what this taught me as I went through the experience was that it wasn't about what was outside. It wasn't about what the church said. It was really about going inward and finding that spiritual God part of me inside of me. That was the focus after the event, was what brought me healing through it all, was
Mm-hmm.
understanding that point and focusing on that instead of focusing on the church orthodoxy or, what the priest said or what anybody else said. I really had to, focus on me and knowing that God was within me and that all the answers really lie within me. And that's where I eventually found the healing through all of it.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. So, what's really important, I feel, for an understanding of ourselves as humans is that what you just said is huge and it's profound because, you know, there is a truth inside of us that because of thousands of years of the teachings of different religions, we're taught not to look inside of ourselves and constantly trust somebody outside. So we give away our sovereignty, we give away our authority, we give away everything to everybody else. And then when it comes time to something happening, within us and they're not there, and then we got to figure out what to do with that, right? Does that feel right when I say that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that the byline of my podcast is uncover the truth of who you are. And what you did in that process was uncovering the truth of who you are. The truth of who you are isn't a religion. The truth of who you are isn't something outside of you. The truth of who you are is love and light and God inside and your soul and presence and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm starting to lean into recognizing that even for myself. So I'm glad you brought that up. So go ahead with what you were going to say, but if you could answer to that too, I think people are just looking for something different. It's not even really different. It's always been there. We just didn't know it. So if you could kind of like lean into that a little bit, that would be wonderful. If this conversation is resonating with something in you, there's a free ebook in the description if anxiety or overwhelm has been part of your experience. These conversations are here to create space for truth, understanding, and a deeper relationship with your own life. Now let's continue.
Yeah. I had, I think I had a reaction to the trauma that a lot of people have. I started using drugs in order to try not
Mm,
to face it. And that was a consequence of the injury. So I was, able to, started using narcotics. And for a while that was enough to kind of get me to a point where I didn't have to think about it or I didn't have to address it or I didn't have to really deal with it. And that happens, I think that's common. And I found, after a while the drugs didn't even weren't enough to provide that distance that I was looking for so that I wouldn't have to really
mhm.
sit down and go within and look at myself and just, do have a time where I'm contemplating, okay, what am I going to do? I need to make a decision here. I'm either going to go ahead and learn from the experience or I'm just going to like crumble. And that was what I was faced with. And I chose
Mm,
my family and myself finally. And I just, I couldn't find the healing outside myself. I would go to therapists or not saying that that's wrong, but for me, it wasn't what I needed and it wasn't what eventually
sure.
helped heal me. So going out just wasn't something that helped in my particular situation. So what I ended up doing is spending a lot of time just in silence and just being quiet and listening to myself and asking myself questions like what do I want? And what I wanted was to
Mm,
be there for my family. And that was the motivation for me to stop the drugs, stop the alcohol, stop everything, stop going to church. I just focused on my own spirituality. And that's basically how I found peace after going through something that just about took my life. So it's not easy. I'm not saying that this is an easy process. It really wasn't, but it was worth the time and effort that I put into it in order to kind of get to the other side of that. And what I learned in that experience helped me with other challenging experiences in my life.
what is the most profound thing that you learned from all of that?
I think the biggest thing I learned was that we're here to have experiences. That's why we're here, in my opinion, in this earth realm. We're here to have experiences,
Mhm.
and then we can accept that we had those experiences and then learn from those experiences. And it's not easy. I'm not saying that this is an easy thing to do, but I would tell people that it's worth your consideration to try to approach challenges or events like that in your life. It's really worth the effort to go within and see, how you can learn whatever lesson it is that you need to learn in this life.
Yes.
And it's really a
Yes.
benefit.
Yes.
It benefited me, but I think it benefited the people around me too by putting in that effort
100%.
to look at it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Now, here's the thing, like, as a trauma survivor myself, let's call it a trauma thriver now. But
Yeah.
as a trauma, like when you go, people who go through traumas, and here's the other piece of it. Like from my perspective, I come in from being an empath and being highly sensitive. And I was going to guess that you were also highly sensitive because when you were talking about the drugs, it's almost like people who are highly sensitive when they like I can't take medication. I have to be very, very careful about any kind of medication that I take because it really alters me beyond what I think it would affect somebody, just the general population, right? So when you're talking
Yeah.
about that, that is a trauma. Like you're traumatizing your body, and at the same time, the medication, as you keep taking it, can contribute to a whole variety of different traumas. But having experienced trauma as a survivor, can you talk to us about people who have survived trauma seeking a spiritual meaning behind their experience, who can like or in order to reclaim their sense of self and sacredness after being shattered by a trauma? What does that look like?
Well, I knew early on that once it occurred that I was going to have to find a way to let it go, just release it. And what I found is, yes, that for me,
The simple thing. Uh-huh.
yeah, it was I forgave the person that had contributed to the accident, and that was very freeing for me. And it felt like there must have been some kind of karmic bond or something, and it just like completely released it. And so for me, it was forgiveness is was the ultimate healer for me, to forgive. And that again, out of all the things that I sought out, all the different therapies and all the different healing techniques, that was the forgiveness was the one thing that really did it for me. That was like the ultimate healer, I found. And all other
Mhm.
therapies helped too, but that was really the big thing, is, forgiving the person that was responsible for the accident. And once I forgave, it got so much easier. Everything got easier.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm curious about something because forgiveness is huge. And for me, when I learned about, we're taught to forgive other people all the time, but for whatever reason, we're not taught to forgive ourselves. So when I went through the forgiveness of the other people, I was having a hard time. When I came to the forgiveness of myself, I had an even harder time and then I could not figure out for the life of me how to forgive myself because I thought I was broken. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I did everything wrong because that's what I was constantly being told by other people in my experience.
Yeah.
So it was almost like I read somewhere. I want to hear what your experience is in this, if you did it or if what you think about what I'm about to say. But like with self forgiveness, a huge challenge because a lot of us don't think we're good enough. We aren't good enough. We are not. I've been told for however many years when I was little. Oh, and so you don't feel like you deserve the forgiveness, right? And then someone told me one time that when you forgive yourself, it's about forgiving yourself for not knowing any better, and that helped me go to a whole nother level outside of the forgiveness of the other person. So I don't know if you've done that or not, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, that was part of my process too. I mean, not just forgiving the other person, but, working on myself. And you're right. I found in my situation that forgiving myself was harder than forgiving the other person. But again, you made a
Mhm.
good point that I ended up telling myself, I'm worthy of this. I'm worthy of forgiving myself. I'm worthy of granting that to myself so that I can move forward and just basically set myself free from the whole experience, the challenging experience. And so I think, yeah, I think you're right. That's part of it. I don't think you can get through it without forgiving yourself as well. Because there's a lot of blame that can go on. I think when we don't have like control over the situation, or we don't have control over the other person.
Yes.
The one thing we have control over is ourself. And that's what I would tell
Mhm.
myself is, that I have control over me, and that's all I have control over. And I'm worthy of that
That's
forgiveness, the
right.
forgiveness I grant to other people. I'm worthy of granting that to myself too. And that's a big thing. It really is big in the healing, like getting to that point. But again, I think it is something that it's a hard thing to do sometimes, and it takes a little time, but it is achievable, and it's very important.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
important to me in my process as I got through it.
Yeah. That's huge. And it's so interesting that, like, and you brought up you said you were raised Catholic and you continued that until you had the accident. What I
Hmm.
find interesting is that, and it's not just religion, it's everything outside of us. It's telling us you have to forgive, but you're not good enough. I mean, it's like this constant beratement of us being less than we actually are coming
Hmm.
from outside of us. So we start to believe that. And then when we actually, I mean, it takes a lot of dedication and strength. And even if you don't feel like you have it, or I felt like I didn't feel like I had it, it's like it takes a lot of chutzpah, which is Yiddish
Hmm.
for the same thing. It's like you have to dig deep inside of you to get to that place. And when you've been, I'm going to say the word violated. That was the first word that came to me. Violated verbally by everything that comes from every angle, whether it's religion, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's whatever's coming in, education, if it comes in from a movie, everything is all about making you feel less than. And then you have to get that thing and find that strength and pull yourself out of it. That's why it's not easy, because you've held on to it so tightly for your whole life, because we've believed everything that they said about us or to us, right? And so when you get
Yeah.
to the forgiveness part, there's like an expectation you need to forgive, and it's like, I don't know how to do that. You just smothered me with telling me I'm terrible, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hearing from you, though, is that strength, is that underlying strength of finding the way to be able to forgive other people and forgive yourself, because it takes a lot to do that. I agree. I totally agree with that.
Hmm. Yeah, it didn't for me, it didn't come like all at once. It was gradual over
Mhm.
time. And I think just taking the first step, you don't have to, walk the whole flight of stairs at once, but just allow yourself to take the first step. And even these small incremental things that you can do every day, just, telling yourself, I forgive myself, and I'm doing the best I can. And that's good. These little things, just, promising yourself that even if you work on it just a little bit each day, if you can't face all of it, that's okay. Just let yourself consider that you're open enough to allow yourself to work on it gradually. And it may not come overnight, and it
Yeah.
may not come all at once, but it doesn't have to. What I found for myself was that as I worked on it little by little, I saw changes happening, and
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
it really helped. It really helped. I just tried not to be too hard on myself and just
That's
allow
a key.
myself. Yeah, I just thought to myself, I'm going to treat
Yeah.
myself like I would treat my family or my good friends, and that helped because I had never looked at it that way before. I had never looked at it that, oh yeah, I am worthy of that kind of care and that kind of love, like self-love. And it really was learning about self-love too, and learning that,
Mhm.
no matter what happens, just giving yourself a chance to be open to healing is just the first step, and
But
each step helps.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the word that popped into my head when you said that is giving yourself grace because, sometimes we're harder on ourselves than anyone else would ever be on us,
Yeah,
because
I
we've
think we're
taken in
taught
so
that.
many voices. It's like, oh,
I think we're
yeah,
taught that from little.
we're 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. There are a couple of things that you had said that I'd like to kind of share a little bit of information on, see what you think about it too. Is you were saying the piece about the all at once. Over the years of me going through my own journey and wanting desperately for it to change like right now. I mean, we have that, what do they call that in our culture? We want everything right now
It's
thing,
like instant
you know.
gratification. Yeah, I agree at that. I think that that's what
Oh,
we're kind of taught. Like, oh, things have to happen like right away. If it
right
doesn't
now.
happen and it's not instant and it's not, I call it.
Yeah.
There's something to be learned in like delaying gratification too, and that I learned that as
Yeah.
well. Is that I wanted
Yeah.
all the healing all at once, and it doesn't always work like that.
Well, it's actually, that's what I was gonna say, is it's like it's actually a good thing that it doesn't all happen at once, because it took years for us to get to the point where we experienced what we experienced and started having or deciding to work through that experience. So if it happened all at once, it would be overwhelming. We wouldn't even know what to do with it because we built upon, every trauma, every trauma, every trauma. And now you want to go, boom. And daily life as a traumatized person is more like this. So if you bring that all at once, it's going to just explode right in front of us, and that's not actually a good thing. So it's good that it doesn't happen all at once. And that's what I wanted to share, because it was like, if it had happened all at once for me, I probably would be in a rubber room. After being in the rubber room for the trauma, then I would be in the rubber room for the experience of healing from the trauma if it happened all at
Yeah.
once. So be aware when you're going through this journey that it really isn't a good thing to do it all at once. So I'm glad yeah, thanks for saying those words, because that was like, whoa, that would have been a little painful to have to go through something like that all at the same time and learn it all and just be, I'm fixed now. That's not how it
Yes.
works.
Yes. And I think
Yeah.
there's something to be said about allowing ourselves to feel that deep pain or that deep grief or the deep emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
We always want to kind of, like soften soften that a little bit. And I think I learned that when I allowed myself to just feel what I was
Mhm.
feeling about the whole situation, and not try to cover it up, like I said, with drugs and alcohol and all the other things that we can use so that we don't have to actually feel what's going on.
Mhm.
And I think once you feel
Exactly.
it and you let yourself feel it, then it's not going to come back after that. You feel these intense emotions. Yes, it's intense, and it's a process that you go through. But that's another
Exactly.
thing I think
Yeah.
I didn't learn growing up. I was never supposed to feel bad or always supposed to be happy, and always never really allowed to have that other side. And once I just said, you know what, I'm just going to wade
Mhm.
through this, and whatever comes up, comes up, and I'm just going to feel it and let myself do that and then release it.
Yeah.
Feel it, feel what it felt like, and then accept it and release it. And once I did that, it
Exactly.
that helped too. Not trying to run away from all those feelings. And once I stopped running away from it, it
Yeah.
stopped.
But
Yep.
that's where the self-forgiveness comes in, Jill, because we were taught how to run away from our feelings. So
Yep.
when you were taught that, if you didn't run away from your feelings, you were bad. So now you have a whole new, reverse way of doing this, and now that you're learning how to face your feelings, also you get the feeling, well, not just you, I've talked to a lot of people, like, now I've got to feel guilty for feeling my feelings because someone told me it was bad to feel my feelings, and that's not true either. guilt and shame and yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, you don't have to be ashamed. Yeah. Well, I found that I don't have to be ashamed because I have those feelings. I can feel and then look at them, accept, and then let it go.
Mhm.
And then it doesn't come back, you know? But
Surrender.
yeah,
That's
it
right.
is
Well, now
surrender. And like,
here's something I want you to know. I just want to share with the audience though, that particular one won't come back, but you'll still get feelings come in. But now that you've released the space inside of you. It's like it gives it room to move through you. Rather, like some people get confused and they think, and I know you're not, I don't think you're saying this, but some people get confused. Like once you're done feeling the feeling, it goes away. But all of our feelings are like a global positioning system for us. It's like you feel anger, you need to protect yourself. You're going to still feel anger you felt when you couldn't protect yourself when you were little, or you couldn't protect yourself when you went through this situation with the medication, all that kind of thing. You still didn't feel like you could. So it all wraps into one thing and it all becomes trauma within the body. So when you release the trauma and you release these emotions, you're making room for, like I said, for them to flow through rather than get stuck on the
yeah,
initial emotion that got stuck in your body, right? And one thing
exactly.
I
Yeah.
wanted to bring up real quick was I wanted to talk a little bit about the silence thing. I didn't want to fly by that so quick because okay, everybody does this differently. So we're taught that we're supposed to meditate, we're supposed to be in silence, we're supposed to do all this stuff and go inside. Yes. And some people can't do that. And a lot of people who've been traumatized can't do that. Like I can't sit in silence for an hour. My head's still in, you know, watching the environment type of thing. My nervous system is still paying attention to everything. So I cannot quiet my mind. So silence doesn't have to necessarily be complete silence in your mind and your body, whatever. It can be
Yeah.
something like walking in nature, a road, whatever, and you hear all the music. But if you're in the forest and you're walking in nature, that's silence. That's basically silence. It's like not
Yeah.
intentionally playing music or, watching television or listening to something or doing or, whatever. Being in silence can also involve just stepping away from the normal day to day stuff too. So I just wanted to clarify that because not everybody who's been traumatized can actually sit in silence because it doesn't work for some people, you
Yeah.
know.
No,
So,
I
but
totally agree.
yeah,
It takes I had the same thing. It was difficult in the beginning to stay silent, to not always
mhm,
have a TV going or some kind of media going. I was used to having that. But yeah, I definitely
yeah,
agree. I do the
yeah,
same thing, being out in nature or just getting in the flow, like even just cooking without anything else going on in the room. Just totally being in the moment of cooking or when I do my
yes,
cleaning or just being in the
mhm,
moment. Keep it quiet when you're doing whatever you're doing. And that's a good start, I think,
yeah.
for people.
It's very
Yeah.
peaceful. Yeah, and it's very, very peaceful, and it teaches you peace. It teaches you the reason why we have all that stuff going on is because we don't want to hear the voices in our head. So we do things like constantly being involved in something or, addictions, any type of addiction silences the voices, at least for a minute. But that's
Mhm.
why we do that stuff is to silence. But when you go into the silence becomes more silence and it's actually peaceful. That's what it ends up
Mhm.
being is peace. And most of us weren't taught that either. So,
Right.
yeah, I have one more question I want to ask you relating to your experience too. It's people are like so hopeful and they want to feel more empowered. And a lot of people feel like I've talked to people who feel like crushed by everything by not being in control or not having any control over anything going on in their life or whatever. But I'm curious to know what brought you hope and empowerment after what you went through after your experience.
Just I always had hope through the whole thing. And that never went away. Deep down inside, always felt like there's always hope no matter how challenging it gets. I always felt that. And afterwards, I just felt like this happened for a reason. And it was hard to look at it like this, but I realized it was a blessing. It woke me up when I
Mhm.
was sleeping. And
Yeah.
that was it was an experience. I was grateful I had this experience and I was able to find a deeper meaning in it as well. And that was really
Mhm.
hopeful for me. I felt like I had been granted a second chance at life and a new way of looking at things. And that wouldn't have occurred unless I had had this challenge. And that was what gave me hope.
That's
That really did. So
that's the kicker. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's the kicker is actually the challenge. If we don't have the challenge, we won't know what that feels like to be able to have that. And in that statement, I want to ask you this. What would you say to someone who right now doesn't feel like they have hope?
I think I would say just don't force anything. You don't have to force the healing or force yourself to do anything. I would just say just allow yourself to consider that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it will come at some point. It may not be there right now, but just open yourself up, but just consider that that will occur for you and it will.
Mm,
If it's not there right
yeah.
now, that's okay. You don't have to feel all warm and fuzzy right now if that's not what you're feeling. Allow
Mhm.
yourself to feel what you're feeling, but give yourself that opening to healing and consider that it will happen at some point. You're going to go through processes and you may not know what that process is. But there is always a light at the end of the tunnel and it's achievable.
Yeah.
Allow
Yeah.
yourself to take the time and take that effort in order to be what comes after the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad you used the light at the end of the tunnel thing because my healing journey has gone on for over 35 years. And I
Hmm.
remember when I first started mine, that light at the end of the tunnel, I saw as a train coming at me.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
little by little, 35 plus years later, it wasn't the train anymore, it became my own light. I started to see my light, not the train.
Hmm.
So, somewhere in there, as you are I used to have a saying, "Be willing, be courageous, be free." You gotta be willing to step into this because that's the thing that's gonna keep you going. That's what it felt like for me. It was like I had to if I wasn't willing, I wasn't gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
So, that light at the end of the tunnel becomes your vista. It becomes your life. It becomes the peace. It becomes
Hmm.
everything. It's like you're not opening yourself up to find something or fix something or whatever. What you're doing is you're coming home to yourself because the truth of who you are is in here. Like you started out by saying at the very beginning, you're coming
Hmm.
home. You're not fixing you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not
Hmm.
broken. You're not nothing is what you think it really is. And nothing is what it seems like it is at all in yourself and in the world, honestly. And when things start shifting, like Jill was saying, and just be easy with yourself and, taking that one little step and just opening up to things and allowing. That was a big word that you used, allowing. That's
Yeah.
what's important for you.
Yeah.
You're important. We're all important.
I think there's a lot to be said for willingness. That's a
Hmm.
big step in itself. Just be willing to allow yourself openings for healing.
Yes.
Willingness
Yep.
and keep showing up for yourself, even when you don't feel like it. Feel that fear and do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it
Yep.
anyway. That
Exactly.
I'm just going to keep using action whether I feel warm and fuzzy inside or not. The warm and fuzzy probably will come at some point, but you're not always going to feel
Yeah.
that in the beginning. But know that you're worth it. You're worth showing up for yourself. And over time,
Yeah.
as you do that, things start happening. As far as it's, I found in my own life, as far as healing. But it's that decision to be willing to do it, to do the work. And it is work doing that. And it does take effort to heal, but
And it
it's a
does take time.
process. It does take time. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's no time limit on it. Like you said, you've been on your healing journey for 35 years, and that's good. That's it shows that you're willing to heal yourself, and that's a big step. You have to be
Yeah.
willing
Well,
to do those things. So, yeah.
exactly, and my thing was being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and that was the thing. I couldn't do it anymore. I was just like, "Nah, I'm not doing this. This is too much." But then I mean, it's up and down. It's like a roller coaster. It's not perfect. It's never perfect. But, yeah. So, Jill, I'm gonna ask you some questions that I ask all of my
Mhm.
guests.
Yeah.
So, what is one thing you would offer someone who knows something isn't right in their life, but doesn't know what to do next?
What I do is I pray about it and meditate on the situation and surround yourself with people who you resonate with because that can be a really big healer as well. Even if it's just one person
Mhm.
that you can go to and just say, "Hey, could you listen to me today?" Or could you just sit with me in silence? That would be something. Find one person, or if you don't have people, animals are great listeners, and they can be good friends too.
Yeah.
And that I would recommend that
Yeah,
as well.
that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I have from my own personal experience, and I'm sure if I've felt this way or experienced this before, someone saying that to me, I'm sure other people have too. But when you say pray about it, can you explain, like, for me, when I hear you say that, and I've heard it my whole life, and I'm like, what am I supposed to pray about? Are
Mhm.
you talking about praying about the actual thing that's happening in the moment, or what does that mean when you say that?
I think knowing that there's a higher power that we can go to, that is the source of
Yes.
all knowledge and the source of all healing. And by going, I think of it myself as going to the universe and just asking those questions and pouring my heart out and saying, this is where I'm at. I don't know what to do. I look for your guidance at the universe.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, and I'm glad you shared that with me. And, like, just to clarify with the audience, I guess, from my perspective, is it's not really what I'm hearing you say when you say that is, and it's this I'm learning something today because I've always had a hard time with that, but, what I'm hearing you say, it's not about kind of the way we've been taught to pray has been asking for things to happen or to materialize in our lives or things like that. That's not what you're saying. What you're saying is connecting with a higher power and asking the questions on your heart, basically.
Yeah,
What you don't understand or what you want to see or but you're not asking for the Maserati, please send it tomorrow type of thing, whatever.
right.
So it's the stuff on your heart is what you're talking about asking or praying about.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes.
Gotcha.
The things
Okay.
that, just taking it to the higher power.
Yeah. Well, that
And
makes okay, I got it now.
yeah,
That also took me 35 years to figure out, but whatever. You eventually find things out that you've wondered about your whole life. Okay,
yeah.
so Jill, how would you define awakening?
I think awakening is just not hiding from the truth and allowing yourself to actually hear the truth,
Mhm.
whether it's what you want to hear or not, and accepting that and just being honest, basically. I think just being honest about what's going on around you, maybe how you're acting or how you're not reacting, just being aware of
That's
yourself and others.
yeah,
That's how I would describe it.
totally. Yeah, that awareness thing is a kicker here.
Yeah,
Uh,
it sure is.
what do you believe soul divinity is?
Think soul divinity is realizing that we are a soul. We are souls, and that God is within us. God is not something outside of us. God it resides in us, and that I believe is the soul divinity.
Beautiful, beautiful. In this part of this, usually I ask this one question, but I'm going to add something to it here. How can people get in touch with you? And also, in the process of that, kind of give a brief description of what your book is about, because we totally missed that somehow. I don't know, maybe because of technology. But yeah, so the name of your book, how they can get your book, maybe a little bit about what it's about, and then maybe your website or something like that. Because we're going to put all this in the description anyway. But
Yeah.
you could share that. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. The name of my book is called Triggers and Hope. And it's a book, it's a small book. It's not a big book. You can probably read it in an hour, hour and a half. And so it doesn't take a lot of time, but it was just me putting words to paper about some challenges that I had in life. And it was challenges as a mother and a wife.
Mm,
And some of the things that we go through as being divine feminine, some of the challenges that we have can happen to anybody.
right.
And so I write about that in the book. And I write about how I came to just realize that challenges are a natural part of life and they're not the end of the world. They're not the end of you. they're they're part of life and that they're there for a reason. And so I just kind of, write about a few particular challenges that I had as a young adult woman, mother,
Mhm.
and wife. And people are able to get the book at Amazon,
Okay.
barnesandnoble.com, and outskirtspress.com.
Okay.
And I do have an email. If people want to email me, my email is my name, the first letter of my name, and then my last name, rdn@gmail.com.
Okay. And what web do you have a website?
I don't have a website
You don't have a
currently.
website. Okay. I see
No,
what you're doing then. Okay. That makes sense. But
I
you sent me your information, so it will be in the description for people to find. And
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think things can happen and just know that every little small step you have to be willing to kind of learn from the challenge is really positive and it can really help. No matter where you're at, you don't have to be an expert in trauma, you don't have to be an expert in anything. You just have to be willing to allow yourself to consider that things are going to get better and that healing, some form of healing can come and that you're worth it. You're worth putting that time in and the effort to work on yourself and to heal
Absolutely.
yourself. Yeah.
Perfect. Beautiful. I love that. Jill, thank you so much. What you brought into
Thank you.
this, yeah, what you brought into this space today speaks to a part of the human experience that so many people know, but rarely have words for. You've reminded us that when life shatters what we thought we knew, the journey isn't always about finding our way back to who we were. It's about discovering who we are now. And to our audience, if you're standing in the middle of something that has changed you and wondering how to move forward, perhaps there is more waiting for you on the other side than you can see right now. Thank you for being here with us on Awakening Soul Divinity. Thank you for being here. Click on one of the videos below to keep going on your healing journey. And don't forget to subscribe.